So we are just a few days away from the return of Charles Oliveira as he is getting a hero's welcome in Brazil, but he has a very difficult stylistic matchup in front of him in Mateusz Gamrot. It was supposed to be Rafael Fiziev. Unfortunately, he got injured and had to pull out. Enter Mateusz Gamrot, a very different stylistic matchup that we're going to see if Charles Oliveira can solve this puzzle. Because listen, man, you can say what you want about Gamrot. This is a guy that not a lot of people in this weight class are excited to go up against. And Charles Oliveira, he's like, give me the next guy, man. I want to be on this card. I want to fight in Brazil. So here we are. We have a very, very interesting stylistic matchup in the main event. And look, all the questions surrounding Charlie Olives, right? He got KO'd just a few months ago back at International Fight Week. And of course, that's one of the most devastating strikers and power punchers in the history of the sport in Ilia Topuria. So no harm, no foul. That was kind of a tailor-made matchup for Ilia because we all know Charles just walks forward right into range, which is why a lot of us picked Ilia to win that fight. However, this is a very different stylistic matchup. So super excited to break down the main event. And also, we have Deiveson Figueiredo, another big name. Former flyweight champions, had some mixed success up at the bantamweight division, right? Rattled off a few wins, and he's been on a little bit of a skid. So we'll talk about that. And he is coming off of, what was an injury against Corey Sandhagen. He's making a quick turnaround here, and he is taking on one of the guys that I've been really high on, man, in the bantamweight division, who without question is getting the biggest opportunity of his career, and that is Montel Jackson. Super excited to see how this fight plays out. And then we also have Joel Alvarez. He is moving up to the welterweight division to take on Vicente Luque, man, and which just feels so foul by the UFC. So Joel Alvarez going from 55 up to welterweight. Super excited to see how some of these fights can play out, man. So from top to bottom, interesting card. We got, few big names towards the top, but a lot of it is rather just intriguing stylistic matchups that I am excited to see how they play out. So let's waste no more time, man, and hop right into it with the very first fight of the evening. We have Simon Oliveira versus Luan Lacerda. I'm going to go Luan Lacerda by decision. Listen, Luan Lacerda, since coming into the UFC, he is 0-2, no knockouts in his career, 10 submissions, 2 decision wins. He is a grappling-based guy. But we have seen on the feet, even though he has not knocked anybody out, he does have some pretty solid striking, right? He throws these big wound-up kicks, but when it comes to the striking, he throws some nice, clean combinations down the middle. And what I don't like about Simon Oliveira, he's a guy that is 0-3 in the UFC. So both guys are winless in the UFC, right? He got the split decision win on the Contender Series, which was kind of just a relentless performance by Oliveira that got him the contract. But he's got that kind of Thai style, marches forward, just kind of throws a bunch of kicks out there. It does have, some power on the feet because in his career, he's got 5 knockouts, 11 submissions, and 2 decision victories. So he's pretty much a finisher if he's going to win the fight. So he's the underdog coming into this. I could definitely see him going out there and getting, a finish in this because I don't think Luan is like way better than him or anything. I just think that this is going to be a gritty kind of scrap. What we've seen from Oliveira, he got finished by Daniel Marcos, but again, Marcos is pretty good, right? Got finished by David Martinez. He just got the win over Rob Font. I picked Martinez to win that one. I told you that guy's the Energizer Bunny, man. And then Luan goes out there, gets finished by Damon Blackshear on the ground. We know Blackshear's got a good ground game. And then he loses a decision to Cody Stamann. I think this is an ultra-competitive fight. I don't think Luan is really that much better. This is just kind of a battle of two guys of almost who wants to keep their job in the UFC. I'm going to favor Luan Lacerda with the straight punches down the middle. I think he can find some good shots on Oliveira, mix in the grappling. And while Oliveira may have a better jiu-jitsu game, I feel like the wrestling of Lacerda is where he has a little bit of an advantage. While Lacerda's got good jiu-jitsu game, a good jiu-jitsu game of his own, I just feel like it's going to be the wrestling and the entries that Lacerda has while being able to gain enough respect with the striking. Even though he hasn't KO'd anybody, he does have kind of that sneaky power that you might overlook. Give me Lacerda to get this one done, but I think this is going to be a crazy, chaotic type of fight to where I could definitely see Oliveira finding a finish in this fight because that's just how the guy fights, with chaos, but give me Lacerda by a decision. Next, we move up to the women's strawweight division. We have Julia Polastri versus Karolina Kowicz. And I'm going to go Julia Polastri here by decision. Listen, and I think Julia Polastri she got the submission win on Dana White's Contender Series, right? And that's kind of where we got to see her. It's like, look, she kind of had a little bit of hype coming into that, right? She goes out there, gets a submission win over Patricia, and I was impressed, right? Because we've seen from Julia Polastri, she kind of has this skill set where she just kind of walks forward, hits this zombie mode, more of a tie-based style, but does have some pretty decent power, right? Throughout her career, she's 1-2 in the UFC, 4 wins by knockout, 3 submissions, and 6 decision victories. So she has the ability to finish the fight. She's got that power on the feet, right? And in this last fight against Lupita Godinez, she started to pour it on late, right? So if you're Karolina and you can't get ahead, even if Karolina can kind of pot shot and get ahead on the scorecards, you got to worry about kind of the ghost of Polastri coming to haunt you in round 3, man, where you might just start to fatigue a little bit, and then she starts to kind of hit that zombie mode, move forward, land some of those big shots, and she also has a pretty solid ground game with good submissions in her back pocket. However, we saw her go out there, beat Corey McKenna. She did lose to Josephine Knudsen. So I don't think that this is this crazy runaway win here for Julia Polastri, right? I'm looking at that she's a big favorite here. I think Karolina is very capable of pulling this thing off. She's a veteran. She's been around for a while, right? The only issue with Karolina, she lacks the danger factor. And I feel like in order to really kind of gain the respect of Julia in this fight, Julia, she doesn't have the best takedown defense, so maybe Karolina comes in with a grapple-heavy game plan. That might be smart early on, right? And then try to open up some of the striking, because Karolina, I think, is maybe a little bit busier of a striker, but it's the danger factor that Julia brings to this. So it's kind of the danger versus the experience and kind of the volume of Karolina, because Karolina's 9-9 in the UFC. And by the way, she beat Thug Rose Namajunas by a split decision back at UFC 201, which that might have been Lawler versus Woodley, if I'm not mistaken. But she's got some miles on her, right? She's coming off of 2 L's, lost to Yasmin Lucindo and Denise Gones, but they're good. They're very, very good, right? So she's beating the Dianas out there. She's beating the Vanessa Demopoulos. She's beating the Gomez Suarez's out there, right? So she's winning these matchups that she should be winning. However, it's in Brazil. I think Julia Polastri, she's got the danger factor to where while Karolina is good, I don't think she presents enough danger to gain the respect of Julia that she's going to need to keep her off of her. I think Julia mixes in the takedowns, threatens with some chokes from the ground, and moves forward in that zombie mode and lands the more damaging shots. I think she wins a very close decision here against Karolina. Don't sleep on Karolina, though, in this fight. I could definitely see her pulling this one off, because I am not completely sold on Julia Polastri, but I'll pick her by decision. Okay, next, we got an interesting fight at heavyweight. We have Walter Walker versus Mo Usman. I'm going to go Walter Walker by TKO. Now, you might say, whoa, how you going to pick him by TKO, man? Because he's literally been rattling off all of these victories by submission, right? He's been on a crazy win streak of getting heel hooks, right? Against Junior Tafa, against Dontel Mays, and then against Kennedy Nzechukwu, who, by the way, Kennedy Nzechukwu, I think he beats Usman. I think Dontel Mays is competitive with Usman. Usman might be able to win that fight at this point. Junior Tafa, I don't know, against Usman, right? So again, with Walter Walker, I got questions, right? Because he came in and he fought Lucas Bresky and he looked awful. He would look fat and out of shape, right? And then now it seems like he's taking this a lot more serious, right? He's 27 years of age. He's a super, powerful guy in terms of the grappling. But on the feet, you talk about slingshot, ooga booga, no technique, running forward, caveman style. That is Walter Walker. I don't have a lot of faith in his striking, man. But he says he wants a KO in this fight. And every time this guy says, I want a submission, I want this and I want that, he seems to go out there and get it done. So I'm not picking him by a knockout on the feet. I think that he is able to threaten some sort of, whether he pulls the heel hook, whatever, somehow they end up on the ground. Maybe Walker just shoots a double, takes him down, and ends up on top. Usman doesn't get off the bottom, and Walker lands some ground and pound, and the referee has to step in and stop this one, because Walker has been 3-1 in the UFC. All 3 of those wins are by heel hook. So I would imagine that Mo Usman, right, we all know his brother's Kamaru, is kind of riding the coattails of Kamaru, but I couldn't believe that Usman went out there and beat Hamdi Abdelwahab. How bad is Hamdi, man? How bad is that guy, right? Just kind of a fat blob moving forward, right? Goes out there, loses to Thomas Petersen, who's on this card. He's pretty solid, right? So I don't fault Usman there, right? And he lost to McParkin. So as much as I kind of crap on, Mo Usman, I don't think he's that good. I really don't. I'm just being honest. I think he's kind of shitty, but again, these losses aren't bad. These are not bad losses, thinking about it, actually. They're not bad losses. So as crazy as it is to say, as bad as I think Mo Usman is, I feel like he might be able to pull this off because Walter Walker, if he cannot have success with the grappling, while Usman isn't that great on the feet, he probably is a little bit better. He's got a little bit of a jab, right? We know Kamaru's got a good jab, a good right hand that follows. He listens to his corner very well. I don't want to be all negative about Usman. He listens to his corner very well, especially in this fight against Hamdi Abdelwahab. They were like, jab, jab, jab. And I think it was it Rashad Evans in his corner? They were literally coaching him like they had a video, like he was they had a controller hooked up to Usman. He was following directions perfectly. So I wouldn't sleep on Usman in this fight. I know a lot of people are going to count him out, but I am going to go Walter Walker, man. I think that this guy's motivated. I think that at this point in time, he is the better fighter, but I worry about him getting tired. I worry about him on the feet against Usman because while Usman's not the greatest, he is 4-2 in the UFC. 4 wins by KOs in his career, 2 submissions, 5 decisions. But like I said, I don't think he's that good. But if you could put the jab in the face of Walker, I could see that being a problem. But look, Walker does have 6 KOs on his resume, 4 submissions, 4 decisions. I just feel like he could threaten the submission game. I feel like as, Usman might have underrated grappling, I don't think it's better than Walter Walker, a 28-year-old who seems to be hitting his stride because I think Kennedy Nzechukwu beats Mo Usman. So I was impressed. I feel like Usman will be prepared for heel hooks. If Walker goes out there and gets another damn heel hook, man, that would be absolutely bananas. But I think he's going to find a ground and pound finish in the first round of this fight. Next, we have Lucas Rocha versus Stuart Nicoll. I'm going to go Lucas Rocha here, and I'm going to say that he gets this one done by second round stoppage. Listen, I think that this is a really interesting stylistic matchup because both guys are relatively unproven, which is why I know I say it a lot. I'm like, I could see it going either way, but really on these prelim fights, man, it's like I'm not as sold as other people might be on some of these guys, man, because with Lucas Rocha, I mean, he landed a brutal knee KO on Dana White's Contender Series to get the contract, right? Goes out there against Davi Bittencourt, and he was facing some adversity with the ground game, right? Comes out there, the guy's kind of chasing after him, ducks into a knee, nasty finish by Lucas Rocha. And then he goes out there and gets completely dominated and submitted by Clayton Carpenter, who's also on this card. But Clayton Carpenter, he's way better than Stuart Nicoll, I would like to believe, right? But we don't know. We don't know because Stuart Nicoll had all this hype, right? And I picked him in this last fight. It was his debut against Jesus Aguilar, right? And he was winning the fight and then got caught in a submission, guillotine, right? And we know that Aguilar's got a good guillotine, right? That's probably the best thing about him, right? I know that Aguilar just got a nice win over Luis Garule. So Aguilar seems to have these prospects number, right? And this is not kind of your typical prospect. This is almost a 31-year-old Stuart Nicoll who had a lot of hype with his ground game. So there is that scenario to where he could come in here and he could kind of expose the flaws in the grappling of Lucas Rocha, specifically the wrestling, right? Because I feel like Stuart Nicoll has the advantage there for sure. But I don't know, man. Like, where is the level of grappling from this guy? Because with Lucas Rocha, yeah, he's 0-1 in the UFC, but he's got 10 wins by KO, 4 submissions, and 3 decision victories. And his ability on the feet to get after guys, I mean, he is ferocious, dude. For a flyweight, I mean, he is an Energizer bunny. He's going to move forward. He's going to throw big shots. He will throw caution to the wind, which that's a little bit of a problem, right? Because Stuart Nicoll's got, he's a little bit taller, got a slight reach advantage, and I could see him dipping underneath, getting a trip off of one of those wild shots that Rocha tries to throw, and then he ends up in a bad position and finds himself, in a bad spot to where, maybe Nicoll can get him out of there. But I'm going to trust Lucas Rocha here. He was getting out-grappled on the Contender Series, but it seems when this guy gets out-grappled, other than the Clay Carpenter fight, who I think is way better than Nicoll, he finds ways to come back into the fight. He does not fade. So he is live to get a finish at any moment of the fight. Stuart Nicoll, 4 knockouts, 3 submissions, 1 decision. He's a grappling-based guy. He's awful on the feet. So if Lucas can stop any of the takedowns or scramble back to his feet, threaten with some submissions off of his back, utilize his good guard, get up and get this fight on the feet, he has a significant advantage there. Give me Lucas to maybe struggle in round 1, but then put it together and find that shot in round 2 with a slowed down Stuart Nicoll. I got Rocha by second round knockout. Next. This is a weird one, bro. This is a weird one, man. We have Irina Alekseeva versus Beatriz Mesquita. Let me turn my page here. I got my notes here, man. I was trying to do these videos before without my notes. I don't know why I was doing that. And then I realized I started to forget a lot of things. So I want to make sure I have my notes here. So make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So Alekseeva is 1-2 in the UFC. She's been out-grappled in both of these losses. Okay, so she comes in, right, comes over for Bellator, comes into the UFC, gets a nice knee bar submission against Stephanie Egger. So it's kind of a good thing, right, because she's kind of known for more or less her judo, right? She's got this wild, brawling style on the feet to where she's very open to being taken down, which she paid for in these fights, right? Got taken down and kind of beaten up by Melissa Mullins, who Melissa Mullins is a big physical girl for this bantamweight division. Then she goes out there and loses to Claudia by unanimous decision. That has been her Achilles heel. She's aggressive on the feet. You talk about slingshot, ooga booga, just running into range, throwing these wild shots from her hip, just almost no technique when it comes to the striking, but she's got a little bit of power. She does have a little bit of power, right? She's got 1 knockout on her record, 2 by submission, 2 by decision. I feel like she's better on the feet, right? Because when you talk about Beatrice, this is a 10-time IBJJF champion, man. She is absolutely legit when it comes to the jiu-jitsu game, right? And all 5 of her professional wins are by submission. But again, who is she fighting? Right, and it's respectable because she is over in LFA, right? And I always say this, a lot of the prospects that come over from LFA, they end up being, at least decent in the UFC, and early on they are competitive. So I'm kind of at a loss here because she's this gigantic favorite, and I don't really like that because what has she done to be a gigantic favorite? Right, the Russian Ronda over here. Take that nickname away from Alekseeva, man. She has just shown that she's not really UFC caliber, but is Beatrice UFC caliber? That's my question here. And I've went back and forth on this because while Alekseeva has not looked good, I've said that I don't think she is UFC caliber. She got dogged on in her last fight. She hasn't looked good. And yes, she's chaotic on the feet, but she's better. She's better on the feet, man. She's got the judo to where maybe she could stop some of the takedowns. Maybe she could threaten a little something off of her back. But at the end of the day, the striking of Beatrice, it just isn't good. It just isn't good, man. It's not good. She's sloppy. She's awful on the feet. She's got to get this fight to the floor at all costs. But what we've seen is she's eaten some shots from some, what looked like pretty good strikers that she was facing over in LFA. And some of them are more clean on the feet than someone like Alekseeva. So while I think Beatrice, is way too big of a favorite coming into this, we see these fighters, they come over, they got a highly credentialed jiu-jitsu background or whatever it might be. It doesn't always work out. Things end up being kind of, they don't always work out. So I am cautious here. We saw Marcus Buchecha come over at heavyweight. He got, steamrolled by Martin Budai. That's definitely a possibility here. But Alekseeva just leaves so many holes on the feet, man. She loads up on these shots where I could easily see Beatrice getting underneath of one of them. Even though Irina might land some of those big shots, she gets reckless. Even if she smells blood in the water and does land a shot, I think Beatrice is going to find a way to get her to the floor, and I think that we're going to see levels when it comes to that. She's training at American Top Team. I think that they will have her prepared. Give me Beatrice to get this one done with low confidence, though, because I don't necessarily trust what I've seen so far, but I don't like what I've seen from Alekseeva whatsoever. So I guess that's kind of what I'm basing it off of, is a very good ground game. We have seen that people kind of give her shit. They're like, she just doesn't have great takedowns, whatever. Seems like she's pretty decent in terms of her entries. Getting to the single leg, getting to the double. I'm going to go Mesquita to get this one done here. But again, wouldn't be shocked if she just ends up struggling because she can't get the fight to the floor because she's not good on the feet. But I just don't think Alekseeva is good. That's what it comes down to. All right, next, we got an interesting fight here at heavyweight. We have the former light heavyweight Vitor Petrino taking on Thomas Petersen. So Vitor Petrino suffered 2 losses at light heavyweight, right? He got submitted by Anthony Smith. That was embarrassing, right? That was one of the worst losses of the year at that time, right? Vitor Petrino, hyped up prospect, has a ton of power, big yoked up guy, goes out there and basically dives headfirst into an Anthony Smith guillotine. I'm like, what are you doing? Keep it on the feet, man. It's basically a washed up Anthony Smith. He's got nothing for you on the feet, dives headfirst into a guillotine. Goes out there, things are kind of back and forth, and then he gets absolutely starched by a former Glory kickboxer who's a pretty technical striker in Dustin Jacoby. So then he goes, you know what, I got to move up. And he moves up to the heavyweight division, right? Blob central, to where if you're a light heavyweight and you have any bit of skill and you go to heavyweight, you should be able to find your way into the rankings rather quickly. So he goes out there against a guy that is just not UFC caliber at all, Austin Lane, and submits him, absolutely punks him on the ground, right? And Vitor Petrino, 5-2 in the UFC, 1-0 at heavyweight. He KO'd Rodolfo Bellato on the Dana White Contender Series, which that was impressive, right? Because I know Bellato's not that great, but that's still good, right? 7 wins by knockout, 2 submissions, 3 decisions. He's got that lighter fighter skill, man, right? I know that he already fought up at heavyweight. He's kind of blown up into this weight class. I'm going to pick Vitor Petrino by a stoppage in the very first round. I think he's going to catch Thomas Petersen on the way in, and if not, I think he follows him to the ground and lands some good ground and pound. But don't sleep on Thomas Petersen either, man, right? Because he's 2-2 in the UFC. He got sniped by a lot of people. Look at this guy as, on their Mount Rushmore of GOATs when it comes to MMA. And I'm talking about Shamil Gaziev, dog. He got sniped by the GOAT. Shamil Gaziev's right hand was a piston in this fight, but he's coming off of a nice win over Dante Almeida, where he completely dominated him on the ground, right? Beat Mo Usman, right? Goes out there and submits Chandler Cole on the Dana White Contender Series. So this guy's pretty good. Right? He's got a high motor for the heavyweight division. He doesn't really fatigue, right? He's got solid wrestling. Might be the better wrestler here, right? When it comes to the jiu-jitsu game, I think Vitor has the edge there. But I'm going to trust the lighter fighter guy that has, I feel like, a skill advantage overall here in Vitor Petrino to go out there and get a victory here over Thomas Petersen. But I feel like the longer this fight goes, that could favor Thomas Petersen posturing up, landing some good ground and pound, and controlling Vitor. But I am going to go with the 28-year-old guy who's just a powerhouse and should be able to burst his way into the rankings in a lackluster heavyweight division. Although I think Petersen is better than a lot of the blobs in the weight class, give me Petrino to get it done. Next, we got a very interesting one here between Joel Filho and Clayton Carpenter. This is one I've went back and forth on. I played ping pong in my mind going bing, bing, bing on who I'm going to pick here. I am going to go Clayton Carpenter by decision. Listen, I was playing with the idea of picking Joel Filho because throughout his career on the Dana White Contender Series to get his contract, gets a round 3 KO against Roybert, who was on the Ultimate Fighter this past season, right? I can't remember. I think he was on Team Chael, but he was pretty solid, right? Pretty solid fighter, goes out there, gets finished. He's been 2-2 in the UFC. His 2 losses, right? He loses to Muhammad Mokaev by submission. You guys know I think the world of Mokaev. He should still be in the UFC. He's got 5 knockouts, 10 submissions, and 1 decision. And his most recent loss, he could have won this fight against Alan Nascimento. Now, I know Nascimento won this fight, fair and square. He was shown to be the better fighter. But really, though, because I felt like Filho, he gave up a lot of positions, right? Because he's one of those guys that he will chase submissions and be okay with losing a position. And I feel like that is what is going to fail him in this fight, man, because Clayton Carpenter, throughout his career, 2 KOs, 4 submissions, 2 decisions. He's 2-1 in the UFC. His one of the losses here, his only loss, I should say, was to Tagir Ulanbekov, right? And he went out there, and I picked Tagir to win the fight, but I was highly impressed with what Clayton was able to do. He really pushed Tagir Ulanbekov, man. He really pushed him, right? And on the feet, he's got some decent speed with the hands, right? I feel like he's more competent on the feet than what people want to give him credit for. He beat Edgar Chairez, who I think is a super game guy in this weight class, in order, on Dana White's Contender Series to get into the UFC. So I think he's got decent speed on the feet. He has the wrestling advantage. He's shown that his submission game is pretty good as well. I feel like this is where the edge kind of changes, right? I don't think Filho's that much better on the feet. I know Filho's dangerous, right? Got the finish over Roybert, finished Barres with a submission, submitted Ode Osborne, but I feel like Clayton Carpenter's wrestling might be the difference here. While Filho may have a little bit of an edge with the submission game, I feel like Carpenter is leveled up there to where his wrestling can help negate that. I think he's decent on the feet to where he can hold his own, if not outstrike Filho. I think he wins a decision with control time, staying away from the submission game, and controlling Filho on the ground while landing the more significant shots on the feet. Give me Carpenter to get this one done in a close fight. Next, we have Lucas Almeida versus Michael Aswell. I'm going to go Lucas Almeida by decision. All right. And this is another fight to me that is very, very close. And I could definitely see Michael Aswell winning this as well. But it intrigues me that Almeida is an underdog here because throughout his career, 9 wins by knockout, 5 by submission, 1 decision victory, and he's 2-3 in the UFC, which that's kind of where the red flags are, right? Because the victory, he goes out there and starches Michael Trezano, which was incredibly impressive. Goes out there, gets subbed by Pat Sabatini. How good is Pat Sabatini on the ground? I think he subs Michael Aswell, right? Probably, or at least controls him on the ground. Goes out there, gets starched by Andre Fili. We've seen Andre touchy-feely, man. He's kind of touchy-feely in terms of showing up and looking like a ranked guy. And then other times it's like, who the hell is this guy, right? So Feely's just Mr. Inconsistent. Then he goes out there and beats Timmy Kawamba, who I think is actually a pretty underrated fighter. Goes out there and does well against him. Then goes out there and loses a split decision to Danny Silva. And I feel like what cost Lucas in this fight a little bit was he started to kind of, I don't want to say slow down, or Silva kind of slowed down a little bit. We saw Almeida slow down, where as Silva started to kind of pour it on with the boxing, I feel like that's where Aswell is going to be able to take advantage here, because with Michael Aswell, 5 knockouts, no submissions, 5 decisions victories. He is 0-1 in the UFC, and he lost to Bogdan Grad on Dana White Contender Series by split decision. I think Bogdan Grad's pretty good, man. Like, I think that he's going to be all right in the UFC. We've seen that he's been okay, right? Then he goes out there, gets a split decision win over in Fury, loses to Balagioki, who we know is very dangerous. Michael Aswell, to me, has the better boxing here. I think that he tends to kind of snowball and start to pour it on as the fight plays out, to where he could really pick up the pace and start to really put it on Almeida if Lucas tends to fade. But I feel like Lucas is going to be able to do enough, man. He's got solid kicks. He's got a good jab from the outside. I feel like Aswell's the better boxer. He likes to move forward, kind of let the hands go. But he leaves himself a little bit open to where I can see Lucas catching him with some shots. I'm not saying he's going to knock him out. I think he can sting him a little bit. And if things do fail a little bit on the feet, while Almeida's not a world beater on the ground, he does have 5 submission victories in his career, man. He does have a little bit of an underrated ground game, I think. I think that the kicking game, a jab from the outside, mixing in some of the grappling to kind of counter the forward pressure of Michael Aswell, I feel like Almeida is going to win a really close decision here over Michael. But Michael tends to pour it on as the fight plays out with his boxing. Doesn't have the most power, but has those kind of beast things that add up to where he could get you out of there. So I could see this going either way, but I favor Lucas Almeida with a more well-rounded skill set, the movement, the jab, and the kicks. Give me Lucas to get this one done in a close decision. Okay, next we got Ricardo Ramos versus Con Offli. Interesting one here, because a lot of people are so quick to write off Con Offli because he is 0-2 in the UFC, right? 2 knockouts in his career, 5 submissions, 4 decisions. What I have noted here to me is he doesn't look the most UFC ready. However, I want to caution you because he lost to Myron Santos, so we're seeing how good he is. And then he also lost to Mo Naimov, who I think is really, really high level. So both losses are to good competition. They are to good competition, right? And he's kind of a smaller guy in this weight class, right? And he was known for his grappling, his submission game, his wrestling, his takedowns, and it just hasn't seemed to transfer into the UFC thus far. So for that reason, this is Shark Tank, I'm out. No, I'm going to pick Ricardo Ramos by a second round TKO stoppage. Listen, Ricardo Ramos is one of those guys, he's 4-1 as a bantamweight. Goes up to 145 pounds, and he has been 4-5. He's been 4-5. So at bantamweight, he seemed to have this advantage over guys, the 5'9" frame, 72-inch reach, where at featherweight, it hasn't exactly worked out, for him, right? And he has a good ground game, right? 7 submission victories, 4 knockouts, 6 decisions, but he's got 2 spinning elbow KOs. So for a guy that's kind of, decent on the feet, throws those kicks, moves around, likes to fight from range, if you charge in, this guy will set up one of those nasty spinning elbows and just knock you the hell out, which is super random because he's a guy that's kind of known for his grappling and sticking and moving kind of style. But his losses are to solid guys, right? These losses to Chepe Mariscal, Julian Erosa, Charles Jourdain, Zubaira Tuhugov, Lerone Murphy, Said Nurmagomedov. Those are some of the names that he's been losing to throughout his career from when he was at bantamweight to featherweight. I mean, that to me, I know that Offli lost to some good opposition in these 2 fights here, but I mean, come on, man. Like, this is good competition here. These guys are all better than Con Offli, in my opinion. Maybe Offli gets his first takedown, or I should say his first takedown, but has some grappling success early. Ramos is more dangerous on the feet. He's got the submission game to where I think he can threaten Offli at all phases on the ground. Give me Ricardo to win by a TKO stoppage or a submission, but I'll say TKO. I think he hurts him on the feet. I feel like there's a skill gap on the feet. Okay, we got a fun one here at heavyweight, man. We got Janata Diniz versus Mario Pinto. This is another one that I've went back and forth on because I know you guys love when I say he went back and forth on this. I mean, look, man, like some of these fights to me, I could see really, I just think are close because I have questions here because Mario Pinto, 1-0 in the UFC, Round 1 KO on Dana White's Contender Series, which was absolutely violent, going out there and finishing Lucas Camacho, who was looking like a pretty promising guy himself. Goes out there and starches Austin Lane. Got stung with a shot by Austin Lane, but he defended against the grappling of Austin Lane well, where Diniz didn't, right? Because they both have fought Austin Lane, and the performance from Mario Pinto against Austin, it was way more impressive. But again, MMA math doesn't always work out. Just wanted to point that out. 6 knockouts, 1 submission, 3 decisions. This guy is explosive. He's a technical striker. He's got devastating power in his hands, does tend to load up a little bit, but he also has a solid ground game, right? If you go back and watch his regional tape, if he takes you down, man, he's got some nasty ground and pound. He's got some good control, right? Doesn't really have a huge submission threat, even though he does have one on the resume. It's really the ground and pound, and when he gets to the top position, he's a pain in the ass to deal with, right? So I think if he comes out and grapples in this fight, I think that he gets it done. So I am going to go Mario Pinto here, and I'm going to say that he gets a TKO stoppage. I'm going to say it happens in round 2. I expect actually a very competitive round 1 because Jonata Diniz, right, former Glory kickboxer. It's crazy because he was in there with Rico Verhoeven, who's one of the greatest kickboxers I think that we've ever seen, right, and lost a decision there. So he get finished by Rico, right? So I guess he could celebrate that a little bit. 7 wins by knockout, no submissions, 2 decisions for Jonata Diniz. From what we've seen thus far, we have seen him on his back against Austin Lane. It's not a good look. He's 3-1 in the UFC. Round 1 KO on Dana White's Contender Series, which is very impressive. He's a former Glory kickboxer, as I mentioned before, but his ground game is not the best. And I feel like Mario Pinto has a better ground game to where he could trouble him in that area. So I think if Pinto comes out looking to strike, maybe Diniz is able to find that shot because he's the more maybe technical, more experienced striker, right? This nasty knockout on the Contender Series, finished Austin Lane, but again, got taken down. That was a year and a half ago. Maybe the takedown defense is better. Beats Carl Williams, but Carl Williams, it was horrible fight IQ there, and Carl Williams, I think, is in the PFL now, right? So send 2-3 years PFL and forget, right? Goes out there and just gets beaten up by Marcin Tybura, questionable IQ in the fight here from Diniz. Then he goes out there and, wins a decision against Alvin Hines, who I think tested positive after that fight. But the bottom line was he started to fade in that fight. And if you fade against Mario Pinto, I mean, we've seen Pinto go the distance 3 times. So I'm not really worried about the gas tank. I trust Mario's gas tank more. He's 27 years of age. While Diniz maybe is the more well-rounded striker with more tools on the feet, he just, to me, has not lived up to kind of what the expectation was for being a Glory kickboxer, right? We had Izzy come over from there, Poatan Pereira. We've seen some guys to where, like, the expectations are so high to where Cesar Almeida is a good example. Diniz is a good example. Like, they're good, but they just haven't adjusted, in my opinion, to MMA in terms of the striking the way that I think a lot of people were hoping. So I think Mario Pinto's speed is going to be the difference here, and I think that he mixes in the ground game and is able to get Diniz out of there with some ground and pound. Lands a big shot on the feet, follows him down. Ref has to step in with some of the ground and pound shots. Give me Mario to get this one done. Okay, moving on to where we got a big name here in Joel Alvarez versus Vicente Luque. That was a moment of silence for Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque is about to get absolutely destroyed by Joel Alvarez in the very first round. And to me, it's just a matter of whether you think it's going to be a club and sub, whether you think Alvarez is just ballsy and blasts a takedown, takes him down and subs him. I think Joel Alvarez is just going to absolutely steamroll Vicente Luque, man. And look, Vicente Luque, in my opinion, is a guy that he shouldn't be fighting anymore, right? This is a guy that at one point in his career, I mean, Vicente Luque, 22 UFC fights, 16 UFC wins. This is a true UFC veteran, man. A guy that's only almost 34 years of age with a wealth of experience. And back in the day, like, Vicente Luque was a fan favorite in this division, man, right? The silent assassin. He would move forward, nasty Muay Thai, good leg kicks, good power in his hands, solid, dynamic striking in terms of the technicalities, good ground game, really good darce, diverse submission attacks. Right, and he's used to kind of being a guy that's not really super outmatched with the frame here. And while he's, down by 1 inch with the reach advantage, Joel Alvarez is 6'3", man. This was a massive lightweight that's coming up to welterweight, and I think this guy can blaze his way into the top ranks of the welterweight division. I'm talking top 10, top 5 with rather pretty much ease, man, with not much resistance. That's how good Joel Alvarez is, man. Joel Alvarez is 5 knockouts, 17 submissions, no decisions. This is a finisher. So if he's going to go out there and win, he's going out there to finish you, right? There's nothing boring about Joel Alvarez, man. All finishes. 7-2 in the UFC. His only losses to Damir Ismagulov, who's a super incredible fighter in my opinion. Really well-rounded, kind of a great what-if, if you will, in the UFC. Got murked by Arman Tsarukyan on the ground. Okay, so you lose to Arman Tsarukyan. Big whoop. Arguably the best lightweight on the planet right now that Islam moved up, right? We got Ilya, we got Arman. Arman's got Hooker coming up. So, okay, it was the wrestling and the power of Arman Tsarukyan. But now we've seen Joel Alvarez go out there and destroy Mark Jacasey by submission. Go out there, brutally finish Elvis Brenner. Go out there and run through Jakar Close, who just went out there and beat Edson Barboza. So Jakar Close is a pretty formidable opponent. This is his debut at 170 pounds in the UFC. He's got the lighter fighter skill. The only thing I don't like about Joel Alvarez is no head movement. But guess who also has no head movement? Vicente Luque. Zero head movement, man. And he melts under pressure. I feel like at this point in his career he does. Vicente Luque, 11 KOs, 9 submissions, 3 decisions. Vicente's not the same guy, man. He just isn't, right? He goes out there, gets ran over by Buckley. It looked like he gave up in there. Goes out there, submits Thimbo Garimbo. Made it look very, very easy to where it's like, Luque's back. Then he goes out there and gets completely destroyed by Kevin Holland. And we knew that Kevin Holland feasts off of these guys that are over the hill at this point, except for against D-Rod. Joel Alvarez is going to steamroll Vicente Luque, man. I'm happy Joel Alvarez is at welterweight. He's a massive guy. He's got power in his hands. He's got a dynamic striking attack, good kicks, knees, power in his hands. Like I said, bad defense, doesn't move his head, but neither does Luque. Luque's defense will let him down. He's a guy that seems to be, he had, the issues with, with his head and all that kind of stuff. Just seems to me like he's a little bit checked out in that department and afraid to kind of get into these contact-based scraps. You can't feel that way and have these questions when you're going in there against a super dangerous guy in Joel Alvarez. Maybe Luque turns back the dials, the hands of time, goes out there and isn't afraid, marches forward, runs right through this dangerous guy in Alvarez. I just don't see it happening, man. Like I said, moment of silence. I think that this is foul by the UFC, man. Saying, Luque, hey, man, yeah, you want to fight in Brazil? Great. But we're going to give you one of the scariest contenders we got that is moving up to the welterweight division. Foul by the UFC. Maybe Luque makes me eat my words, goes out there and pulls us off. I just don't think so, man. I think Alvarez runs him over. I don't think it's competitive. Okay, co-main event. We got Deiveson Figueiredo versus Montel Jackson. I don't know if I'm overthinking this one, but I feel like a lot of people are dismissing Deiveson Figueiredo. He's a pretty solid underdog coming into this. I feel like if it makes sense, I feel like he's the more well-rounded fighter. I feel like he's the better fighter. Former flyweight champion, 9 knockouts, 9 submissions, 6 decisions. He has a number of ways that he could finish you, right? And since coming up to bantamweight, I mean, he's been pretty good. Went out there and beat up on Rob Font. Had him on skates a few times, right? People were like, is the power going to translate? Clearly translated, and so did the speed. Goes out there and easily submits Cody Garbrandt and destroys him at UFC 300. But we've seen Garbrandt's fallen off. Beats Marlon Vera, basically the first guy to ever drop Chito Vera. So it shows the power that Figgy has. He's dropped 2 in a row. Got masterclass by Petr Yan. Again, that's Petr Yan, one of the most skilled fighters we've ever seen. Goes out there, has the knee injury against Corey Sandhagen. That's 5 months ago. Corey Sandhagen just lost to Merab for the title, so he's basically having the same turnaround time. He's the guy that got injured against Corey Sandhagen. He's 38 years of age. I got questions about that injury, man. How healthy is Deiveson Figueiredo coming into this fight? I don't know. This, to me, seems like one of those things where it's like, it's in Brazil. I'm getting towards the tail end of my career. I got to be on this card. And the UFC is basically like, you could be on this card, but you got to face one of the dark horses in the division, a guy that I've been critical of in the sense that it feels like we only see Montel Jackson fight once a year. He goes into hibernation, a year goes by, then he comes out and fights, and this guy's too skilled to be that inactive. Big opportunity for Montel Jackson, man. Right, but I feel like overall, Figgy's the better fighter, if that makes sense, man. That was May 3rd that he had that injury, and here we are in October. 13 UFC wins. He's 3-2 at bantamweight, and the 2 losses are against really well-rounded guys. This is a big step up for Montel Jackson. But I am going to go Montel Jackson here. I really think that he is going to find a win in this fight. And I'm going to say a decision. Maybe he gets a knockout. But here's why I favor Montel Jackson. He's 5'10". He's got a 5-inch height advantage. He's got basically, a 7.5 inch reach advantage here. He's got really good length. He utilizes his frame very well. Good push kicks up the middle. He's got that sniper left hand. Figgy holds his hands low. And I feel like once you're kind of established and you're the lighter guy in this new weight class, Figgy's kind of bloated up a little bit now. I don't think he's as fast as he once was. Maybe he's got some more power. He holds those hands low, man, and his chin is in the air. He's got that kind of karate-like, style. Yeah, he's got big power, but he loads up. And I feel like when you load up against Montel Jackson, it's a problem, right? Jackson, on the Dana White Contender Series, that's how he got his contract. It was a round 3 KO back in 2018. 9-2 in the UFC. His only losses are to Ricky Simone and Brett Johns, right? So guys that can grapple, they have seemed to, maybe give him some trouble. Those were a while ago, man. Montel Jackson's a good striker. He's got a nasty left hand that he throws right down the middle. That thing's a piston. 8 wins by knockout, 1 submission, 6 decisions. We've seen him submit, I think it was Brian Kelleher. He's been on a nice tear. Wasn't impressed with his last performance against Marcos. Marcos was a hyped up prospect. He's looked really, really good, super durable, well-rounded guy. I feel like Marcos could be slightly competitive with Figueiredo. Really, it's the worry that I have on the feet. The volume of Jackson tends to suffer. He tends to try to be too perfect, and I'm worried about him kind of being afraid of the Figueiredo ground game to where he freezes and Figgy's able to get ahead on the scorecards. Because I think Deiveson has an edge on the ground. But is he able to easily get Jackson down? I think he's going to struggle to be able to do that, man. I think he's going to be able to struggle to do that. Jackson controls the range well. He's got a good jab. That left hand is nasty. Figgy has his chin in the air, drops his hands. I can see Jackson catching him and putting him away, man. I could. So maybe, I don't know if he finishes Figueiredo because we've seen Figueiredo is very durable. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think Figueiredo maybe has some success on the ground. I don't know if he's able to submit Jackson. Maybe he does. Like I said, I feel like you can't count out Figgy. I think he's the more overall well-rounded fighter. There's a big opportunity for Montel Jackson, man. I've been waiting for this guy to get a big step up like this, to fight a top 10 guy in the bantamweight division. I feel like it's Montel Jackson time, man. And listen, I was watching a highlight of Montel Jackson. They had some Jeezy playing in the background. I'm like, this is a hard-ass edit, dude. And I'm like fired up for Montel Jackson. I like this guy. I've been high on him. I'm going to stay on the Montel Jackson side here. I think he's able to get it done. But like I said, don't count out Figueiredo. I'm worried about the injury. Feels like he's kind of forcing himself to be on this card a little bit. He's got a tough challenge in front of him with a rangy striker in Jackson. But if Figgy can get the fight to the floor, he might be able to get a submission here. So I think if Figgy wins, he can find a submission. I think Jackson can find a KO, win by decision, outscore him. He's a more precise striker. He's got the range. Give me Montel Jackson to get this one done with his sniper-like striking. All right, last but not least, we have arrived at the main event, and if you are enjoying this video and you're still around, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel and subscribe it up, man, I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, main event. We have Charles Oliveira versus Mateusz Gamrot. This is a very tricky fight. It's a very tricky fight because it's a different stylistic matchup than what Charles was expecting. We know that he was anticipating a fight with Rafael Fiziev. That was the original fight here. And it's kind of a trade-off in a way, right? Because with Fiziev, there was the fear of, okay, well, Charles just got knocked out a few months ago against Ilia Topuria, which, by the way, Fiziev is definitely not Ilia Topuria in terms of the power and in terms of the boxing. But Fiziev still has some decent power, nasty Muay Thai, fast on the feet, decent improved ground game to where it felt like, we know he's got brick wall takedown defense. Might be hard for Charles to get him down. It's a 5-rounder. We see Fiziev fade, so maybe Charles could take over later. To where now, right, it felt like Charles, I knew he was going to take the fight, but there was this hesitancy, right? Because Gamrot is a totally different style, and not only is Gamrot a different style, he might be the real BMF in the UFC. This guy is willing to fight anybody, anytime, any place. Gamrot is 8-3 in the UFC. His only losses are a close decision to Guram Kutateladze, which that's crazy because Guram's out of the UFC. A disappointment Guram ended up being. Lost to Beneil the Douche Dariush. And then goes out. I stole that from Connor. He called him Beneil the Dariush. I like Dariush, man. Goes out there and loses a split decision to Dan Hooker, right? That was one of the more recent fights. It was a crazy fight. Then goes out there and beats Ludovic Klein, who was a pretty good prospect. He's got crazy cardio. He's got a relentless style, and I feel like he might have the best pure wrestling in this weight class, right? Especially now that Islam's moved up, and even still, I feel like straight wrestling, that edge goes to Gamrot, man. And people talk about how Gamrot, Charles, you don't have to worry here because Gamrot's not a finisher. He's not exactly known for his finishing ability, but he has a ground and pound win over Holtzman back in the day. He Kimura Jeremy Stevens in round number 1 in the next fight. So, and the fight against Arman Sarukian, I thought it was a robbery. I thought Arman won that fight. But the point is Gamrot, he's relentless, right? And if you look at Charles Oliveira, when he lost to Arman Sarukian, it's like, okay, well, we saw Charles struggle with a little bit of the wrestling against Arman, but it was a close fight. It was a close fight, right? Charles Oliveira, 10 knockouts, 21 submissions, 4 decisions. Most prolific finisher in UFC history. Is the more dangerous fighter in this matchup. 23-11 in the UFC since 2010. He's been around, man. Absolute OG, absolute legend. Nasty Muay Thai, excellent jiu-jitsu skills, and improved wrestling. We saw that against Michael Chandler, man. He put on basically a wrestling clinic for damn near 25 minutes in that rematch, which I know it's not the greatest look considering what Pimblett just did. But Charles Oliveira is more dangerous, man. I feel like the big concern is it's a quick turnaround, and my sanity would not be able to take it if he loses this fight. I can't take it, man, especially to go out there and get dominated by Gamrot on the ground and just drown with the pace in the wrestling. But I am going to go Charles Oliveira by finish. I think he wins this fight. Now, the question is it a knockout or is it a submission? And I'm going to go Charles Oliveira by TKO, but again, it's hard to predict Charles Oliveira in terms of a knockout or submission. I'm actually going to go submission here. I'll go submission. It's a finish regardless, okay? Here's why. Gamrot is an absolute savage. I love watching this guy fight because while he doesn't have that BMF style of I'm going to just go in there and strike and do this and do that, he's going to move forward. He's going to give it his all. He's down to fight anybody. He's got a crazy pace, man. And I am worried a little bit about the chin of Charles. However, I don't expect Charles to fight like he is worried about his chin. He's going to move forward. He's got that Muay Thai style where his hands are up, which is a little bit of a problem because then that allows Gamrot to shoot that low, those low attacks to be able to get in on the legs and the hips of Charles Oliveira to be able to take him down. But also one of the problems with Gamrot is he doesn't do the best when he's getting pressured. We saw that in the Hooker fight. We saw that at times in the Arman fight. We also have seen that throughout his career. If you can pressure Mateusz Gamrot, he's not the same fighter off of his back foot. I think it was the Ludovic Klein fight. One of those fights, he was really struggling, man, because he was on the back foot, right? And yeah, he still could shoot a nice takedown, but he becomes predictable. And I think Charles Oliveira is going to attack the lead leg, bury those front kicks into the midsection, try to take away some of the steam that Gamrot brings to the table because he is relentless with the grappling. Maybe Gamrot goes out there and just controls Charles and ends up winning a decision by putting on a wrestling clinic. That's definitely a possibility. But you mean to tell me that you're going to grapple with Charles Oliveira for 25 minutes and make it out of there without getting submitted or something? That's crazy to me at this point. I feel like that's crazy. I feel like people are going to write off Charles because of that last performance. Why? Because he got KO'd by one of the most devastating strikers and power punchers we've ever seen. Give me a break, man. If Gamrot KO'd him, I will come on here and cry probably in my recap. Charles Oliveira, he's got nasty power. You heard what Gaethje said when he got hit by this guy. Charles has the ability to submit anybody. He's a big guy in the weight class. He's got the reach advantage. I know he doesn't always use it. He kind of crashes in the range. I don't think Gamrot has the ability to earn Charles's respect with the striking. And if he puts Gamrot on his heels, he's not the same fighter with the wrestling. The wrestling is better when you are moving forward and pressuring. I don't think Charles is going to let that happen. So I think Charles is able to rock him on the feet, land a good right hand, bury those front kicks to the midsection, attack that lead leg, make it hard for Gamrot to plant and shoot in on those shots. Those knees, the front kicks, I think, are going to be a big weapon. And I really think that left hook, Gamrot's hands drop, boom, that left hook could be there. I think that right hand of Oliveira is going to find a home right down the middle. Even those elbows, he landed a nasty elbow on Ilya when he stepped into range. The big concern with Charles, and I know it is for a lot of people, is he tends to accept being, on bottom a little bit because he has a great guard. And those guys that shoot a box, they play really well for MMA. They play really well off of their back. They got submissions, arm bars, right? They got their triangles. They land nasty elbows from the bottom. They get their butterfly hooks in, can sweep you reverse positions. They got leg attacks. Charles is one of those guys that tends to try to camp out on the bottom. And that's a concern I have here. But Gamrot doesn't have the best control. And I feel like Charles will be able to threaten with positions to get out of those positions, right? So Gamrot, he's got the wrestling and he's a better wrestler here, but Charles has improved. He has the jiu-jitsu to make him scared. And on the feet, he's a far better striker and he's way more dangerous. Interesting style matchup. I am concerned a little bit for Charles here, right? People seem to think he's washed, whatever. I don't think so. Why? Because he got KO'd by Ilya. He's been in there beating some of the best guys in the world. Okay, so he's losing a close fight to Arman Sarukian, who's probably going to be fighting for the title shortly. Okay, so he lost to Islam. Brutally finished Beneil Dariush with a head kick. Goes out there, puts on a masterclass against Michael Chandler. I got Charles Oliveira getting this one done, man. I think he gets a stoppage. Whether it's a knockout, a submission, I think it's a club and sub, kind of like what he did to Gaethje. He's going to pressure Gamrot, put him on the back foot, beat up his legs, beat up his midsection, find a right hand, submit him. Give me Charles Oliveira to get this one done. But I like Matthew Gamrot, man. I like both of these guys. They're absolute savages. I could see Gamrot going out there, putting his pace and wrestling to use. But I feel like that this is a nice step up for Gamrot that I think that he has kind of deserved at this point. But I still think Charles is that guy, man. I love Do Bronx, man. I hope he gets it done. Rooting for Charles. I think he gets it done. I like Gamrot. But I got to root for Charles. My sanity and MMA needs this one, man. Give me Charles Oliveira to get this one done. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.